Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello, and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today, we are honored to welcome Gretchen Kingma, occupational therapist and founder of Empowered Homes. Welcome, Gretchen. And how are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. It's our pleasure. So, Gretchen, let's start off with you sharing a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah. So I am an occupational therapist by trade, treated clinically with the older adult and adult rehab population for approximately 6 years. And during my time in the hospital and senior living community, saw a huge gap in accessible housing, would discharge people home, and then their homes didn't serve them well. So they would come back to the hospital, come back to rehab, and that drove me crazy. So when on maternity leave, I pivoted my career, kept the occupational therapy background, but got my real estate license and started my own company, focusing on real estate sales and accessibility consulting. So that's where I am today.
Wonderful, wonderful. And now, do you want to explain a little bit about what Empowered Homes is and what it is exactly that you do and how it helps families?
Yeah. So Empowered Homes is a real estate and services company that we have three pillars: education, consultation, and real estate. Real estate is just what it sounds like. So if you are anywhere in the United States, I'm actually able to find someone who understands the very nuanced needs of finding a home that will help you stay in it forever. I hate the phrase age in place. So a home that will help you live in place long term. And then the consultation piece, I actually have a business partner who has a heavy design background, who is also an occupational therapist. And in that service offering, we help people work with their contractors, with their builders, when thinking about modifying their homes to create a more universal design or accessible space. And then the education piece is every single day. I'm always educating people on how healthcare and real estate come together in order to allow people to stay in the home of their choice, in the community of their choice, long term. So those are our three main offerings and service buckets, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And, you really touched on something that I think really essentially applies across all of healthcare, and that is education, right? So many times we come into contact with families who don't know that home care services exist. They don't know that home health care services exist. And that's even coming from the tops of the healthcare industry, where, recently someone that works here on the show had a friend who had a loved one in in the hospital. They're being prepared to be discharged to a nursing home. And the family said, well, aren't they able to come home? And they said, well, no, because they need 24-hour care. Well, the person working here on the show, they automatically knew that that wasn't accurate, that you can have care and support within your home as much or as little as you need, up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's coming from the discharge planner, right? And so they questioned it, and their response was, well, home care services won't provide 24-hour care. So that just shows the lack of education, that families are receiving from these healthcare professionals. Not all of them, but for a majority, oftentimes they're not equipped with the proper resources or information to help these families who are, entrusted into their care, and they're preparing them to now leave the facility or the hospital, but they're ill-equipped with the resources that they need for once they are discharged. Do you find that often with families with the occupational therapy side?
Absolutely. And to your point, what I love about what I do is that I get to use home health as a member of our team. So we like to say that where we are very interdisciplinary. So never, ever, ever would I would I think that somebody couldn't stay at home. But what I love about what I do is that I get to pair that home health piece, the personal component, with the actual environmental piece. So I'm very passionate about setting up the home from an environmental perspective, equipment, space, home modification, so that pairing that environment with services like home health services and home care services, the person can stay there for forever, frankly. But yes, often get that pushback of, well, and that was one of my biggest anger points in rehab is, well, they can't go home because their Medicare or their insurance won't cover X piece of equipment. And so they can't toilet themselves, or they can't do their IADLs, instrumental activities of daily living, cooking, cleaning, things that people need to do in order to be at home alone. So I love the education piece, use social media. I have an Amazon storefront where I highlight tools, basically a healthcare life hack on things that will help you stay at home. So you compare that environmental with what you're talking about, the home care services, so that you can have that interdisciplinary team and never take no as an answer. If there's a will, there's always a way to be at home.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more or echo that fact more. The problem is, we're oftentimes finding ourselves in the minority of that thinking. And I don't think it's for a lack of really how I don't know the word I would want to use here. Sometimes I think they feel like it's not very, pragmatic, right? To do that. And that's coming from the healthcare side. And I think it's really for a lack of knowing about what services are available or knowing what these services can provide, right? So before you created and founded this tremendous resource and company, Empowered Homes, which I do want to say we will have all the links to all of the Amazon website, all of your social media, your YouTube channel for our listeners and viewers, so that they can explore more of these services, because it's a vital, instrumental resource for helping people to, as you coined it, live at home safely, right? So when they don't have the resources, though, they don't have the ability to make those decisions about what will best fit their loved one or even their own needs. So when you go back to your occupational therapy days, Gretchen, before Empowered Homes, do you go back to a significant event or a point in time where you're like, I need to do something about this, I need to create something, and ultimately you create Empowered Homes? Where was that transition for you?
Yeah, I would say it was in many, many of discharge planning meetings with the patient and their family sitting on the other side of the table, and hearing them say, well, we can't get mom into the house because we have 4 steps. We can't afford to tear out those 4 steps and create a sloped entryway into the home. And so it was discharge meeting after discharge meeting where the family was just thinking that there were no other options. It was actually right when I was about to go on maternity leave. I looked down at the 104 patients that I had on my caseload and thought, that's not ethical. Surely they're not getting great care from me. But the system, that's how it was set up. And I thought, gosh, all of these people that think that they can't achieve their goal at home, and one little OT for all of these people, there's got to be a better way. So I told my therapy manager, I'll see you in 12 weeks. Went home, told my husband, I'm never going back there. I have 12 weeks to fill this gap, and let's go. So created the business, dreamt up the idea while on maternity leave, and the rest was history.
Wow, remarkable. That's incredible. And what a testament to everything you've accomplished in such a short period of time too, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. How many years has Empowered Homes been in existence now?
6 years.
6 years. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So one question, because we get this question quite often when we're talking about home health services for families, about the OT and the PT. Would you mind taking a moment for viewers and listeners who may not understand the difference between physical therapy and occupational therapy? And there is a difference, and they each have an important role to play.
Yeah, that's a great question that I've been answering since I went to OT school. Even my own parents are like, I don't understand. The way that I would explain it very basically to my patients before they were discharging it or while they were at the hospital and they would say, I just had PT. The way that we would explain it is that a physical therapist is going to work on your balance, your strength, your endurance in order to do the things that you need to do at home. So your occupational therapist is working on the same things: strength, balance, endurance, cognition, but with a purpose of carrying out the activities that you both want and need to do. So one is very focused on the physical therapy, is very focused on the rote activity, the strength, the output. And occupational therapy is focused on those same things, but applying them to a why, if that makes sense.
Sure, sure. So as you're in these discharge plan meetings and you're talking to your patients before they're leaving, and I'm assuming maybe you give them some exercises that they could try once they're no longer under your service. How do you explain it to families and these patients why it's so important to plan ahead when taking into account the homes that they live in?
Yeah. So again, going back to that interdisciplinary teamwork, I typically lean, when I was in that clinical role, I would lean heavily on my physical therapy partner to create the actual exercises, the home exercise program or the HEP, whatever you want to call it. As far as setting up the environment, though, it's very important when being proactive. And I speak from not even from a discharge. You pose the question from a discharge perspective, but I'm going a step further in challenging people my parents' age, 50s, 50, 60-year-olds who are in great health. Maybe they're looking to downsize. It's that time when you need to be proactive in thinking about your built environment, because it's so much more costly and stressful when you're making those changes out of necessity rather than making them out of a proactive stance. So I always encourage people on the real estate side of our business, even if they're 32 and have little kids and don't have anyone in their family that uses a walker, cane, wheelchair, or any mobility device, I'm always challenging people to think ahead, because we are not guaranteed good health tomorrow. So you just don't know when things will change. And so when you can buy a home or modify, if you're doing a bathroom remodel or a kitchen remodel, those are the times when you should be thinking about the future, so that it's a much easier transition when something does happen. Because again, it's so much easier to easier and more economically affordable to do it up front than when you're in a position of, oh crap, how are we going to get mom home, or how are we going to get me home after a hip replacement, etc.
Absolutely. We, kind of on our side, we advise families, make the decisions while you still have the ability to make them for yourself. You don't want to make these life altering decisions when you're in a moment of crisis or panic, because quite often you might make the wrong choice just out of, that crisis, rather than when you have time to research it, look at the future, look at the different options that are available, so that you can make it comfortably and know that you're making it, with the right mindset, right? Where oftentimes families, mom had a fall. Well, we need to put her in assisted living. Mom might not be a good candidate for assisted living, but sometimes you might get, you kind of hear what you want to hear and see what you want to see, rather than really understanding what all assisted living means, or independent living, or even being in a long-term care facility. And we see that so frequently. And, with resources like, Empowered Homes, you're helping these families plan ahead, plan for the future, while all while being able to continue living in the comforts of their home. And oftentimes, I'm sure a lot of these people have lived in their homes for years and years, and that would be their last choice, to leave that home, right?
Absolutely. I'm sure you all know this as a home care company, but AARP does a self-report study year over year over year, and it's something like 92% of people 65 and older report that they want to stay in their home. So
Yes.
absolutely correct.
Yeah. And I think it would be 100%, because we see those reports. I always, my impression of the 8% who obviously are saying they would rather not, it's because they don't know that they can, right? That one of those 8% of those people surveyed, they may say no because they're overwhelmed. They can't keep up with the home, or the bathroom is a major hazard and it's not safe or practical for them to use. if you told them, okay, you have a company like Empowered Homes that could help you create a safe bathroom environment where it will be, physically possible for you to safely shower, bathe, and toilet, they might change their answer to, yes, I do want to continue living in my home.
Mm-hmm.
So I always
Mm-hmm.
look at those studies kind of with less than rose-colored glasses, because I wonder how the questions are posed and, that sort of thing. So one of the things we see on your page is that you promote universal design quite a lot. What is universal design? What does that mean?
Yeah, so this is something I'm super excited about. Universal design is just a way to create objects and spaces universally. And because I never like to put the title in the definition, universal just means that it is acceptable and usable to people of all ages and all abilities. So I used to teach as an adjunct professor for an occupational therapy department, and I would explain universal design to my students as hiding the peas in the mashed potatoes. So accessibility, ADA is what a lot of people think of when they think accessibility, is
Right.
a very reactive approach to design. It requires there to be a disability in order to create accessibility, whereas universal design is a proactive way of designing objects and spaces that it benefits all people. And so that is, in a nutshell, what universal design is, and what I always tend to make recommendations when it comes to real estate, products at home, anything to simplify home usually is universally designed.
What's one of the most common requests that you receive at Empowered Homes?
How to make a zero step entry home. That's the number one thing people reach out about, because once you're in the home, it's pretty, I shouldn't say easy. Once you're in the home, there's a lot to be done to make it work. But
Okay.
that's the biggest barrier for a lot of people, especially in the mighty Midwest, because we have beautiful landscapes and rolling hills. Many of the homes were built with at least one, two, three steps to enter. So that's the number one request that I typically get is how do we eliminate these stairs so we can get in the house?
How, and I know every case would be, case by case basis, but is it when people watch this or listen to this and they're thinking, well, this sounds like something we wouldn't be able to afford? What is the economic ramifications
Mm.
if you have a three-step entry? I know landscape and geography, typography, all of that probably plays into it. But is it something that is a huge financial investment, or is it fairly reasonable? How
Yeah,
does
great question. So anything from a sloped entry to a house all the way up to new construction, building a whole house. What I love about universal design is it can be scaled for any budget. So just giving that example that we just talked about, I would say the most expensive, the most costly modification would be to tear out the existing steps, increase the grade at the front of the house, so backfill some dirt, increase the grade, and then re-pour concrete so that you have a flush entryway. That's going to be the most expensive. However, in order to achieve the same goal, people discharging from the hospital might think that their only option is to go out and rent one of those metal ramps from a company that markets to people post rehab, where that looks like a ramp. It looks a little bit tacky. It screams somebody with a disability lives here. So the more affordable economic route would be to hire a carpenter or a contractor that is open-minded, open to your vision, and put a wood ramp together that maybe has some planter boxes on either side. So, and I'm pointing because I'm looking at my front entryway, but has planter boxes on either side that you could put flowers, or if you're a gardener, you could change out the flowers with the season. So you're integrating that sloped entryway and making it look more like a fixture, or a planter box instead of just throwing a metal ramp out there. So that's how you use universal design to integrate it into your home.
Does Medicare help to cover the costs of ramps for patients who may be wheelchair bound or have other limitations?
Yeah, unfortunately, what Medicare will cover is very, very slim when it comes to ramps and sloped entryways. I will say, I know for St. Louis, which is where I am located, that there are grants and organizations. There's one in St. Louis that provides free ramps for individuals who need it, and I'm happy to help anyone locate those services for their city if somebody finds the need. But unfortunately, Medicare, what they do cover for a ramp is very small, and it's a one specific type that isn't necessarily universally designed.
Sure. During your occupational clinical career, how often did the facilities or the hospitals ever send you guys out to do any home safety evaluations prior to a discharge? Did that happen often for you guys?
Yeah, it happened often, and I don't want this to sound like a Medicare discussion.
Right.
Yet with Medicare constantly changing and what they will reimburse for and what they won't reimburse for, our home visits got less and less and less. And what I mean by that is that when I first started in OT, I could go to somebody's home for a whole hour and be able to have that reimbursed through Medicare. As the years went on, that turned into 30 minutes, and then it turned into 30 minutes with only having to fit these criteria. So as far as insurance covering that home assessment piece, it became harder and harder, which is another impetus to how and why I started my business, because there is so much. I would hate just handing over a laundry list. Here are the things that need to be done, but then not being able to pair those with resources. Here's how you can achieve them. If finances are a problem, here's some grants, here's some things that you could do to afford that. So yes, but is my
Okay.
answer to that question.
Do you recommend families who may not be aware of the hazards or the potential, pitfalls for their loved ones or even themselves to request to have a home safety evaluation done?
Absolutely. Always, always, always. If you find yourself with a loved one or you yourself are in a rehab, both inpatient or outpatient rehab, I would always ask your therapist, is there any way we could have a home assessment by our occupational therapist, and just advocate for yourself in that way? You never know what they might say. If the answer is no, your insurance doesn't cover it, we do virtual assessments. If you have a loved one that is tech savvy and can get on a call just like this one, a Zoom call or a FaceTime, we're happy to do that. And it comes with a report that has a stoplight type system, green light being the most affordable things you can do now to make your home safe, yellow light being you might need to budget. They're a little bit larger, medium budget wise, but they're important to making home safe. And then red light objects being large, capital expenditure type fixes, but they are important for keeping you at home.
So one question we get asked quite frequently is when the bathroom and the bedroom are upstairs and the loved one no longer has the ability to walk up the stairs. You can move the bedroom downstairs most often, but you can't move the bathroom. You can, but not instantaneously. Well, how do you recommend families manage that when maybe they're waiting on a contractor, but maybe it's going to take a month or two? What's your kind of professional opinion of the best option? Because I know a lot of families that encounter that, or the laundry room is in the basement and they can't move it upstairs. Those types of situations. What are some quick fix tips that they could possibly do on their own?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I hate this answer, but it depends. It just
Sure.
depends on the person, particularly on the person who needs the space. A lot of people like chair lifts or add a chairlift to the stairs. I don't love them because it does require a lot of balance and a lot of fine motor skills and a lot of core and trunk strength in order to do it safely. So that's why I say it depends. If the person really just the stairs are the problem, everything else is intact, meaning cognition, vision, fine motor, tactile, then maybe a chairlift would be a good alternative. But again, that's a sometimes $10,000 to $30,000 depending on the type of stairs, the bend in the stairs, fix. And so if somebody
Right.
doesn't have that type of budget, I would say the easiest fix is using a dining room or a flex space on the main level, transforming that into a bedroom. And then unfortunately, I have a lot of people that do sink and bed baths when they're on the main floor,
Okay.
because maybe they'll have a powder room and it has access to plumbing, but we can't create a main floor bathroom overnight. So those would be the quick, easy ways. Of course, there's ways to scale that cost and home modification wise, but that would be my recommendation is don't try the stairs. Bring a bed down to a dining room or a flex space and use whatever water you have on the main level to make do until a larger modification could be made.
Okay, great. And so you mentioned this earlier, and I want to go back to it. You were talking about your Amazon storefront. Walk us through what the storefront's like and what all is on there.
Yeah, so I dreamt that up because of my experience in clinical OT. Whenever somebody would discharge, the way that we would make recommendations, let's talk about kitchen. Let's say somebody post stroke loves cooking and they want to return to cooking, but they have some left-sided or right-sided weakness. I was making kitchen recommendations all the time, but the way that I would do that, and after interviewing a lot of my OT friends, the way that they still do that is looking at the item, typing it out, printing the paper, handing the paper and the stack of 50 papers at discharge planning and handing it over to the family member. So then the family member has to go back, type it in, find it. So I applied for an Amazon storefront, and I guess they found me worthy. But really, it's anything and everything to simplify life at home. And I have broken it down into kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, outdoors, and it's things that I've used. I will never recommend something if I haven't tried it or had a patient try it. That has helped people reintegrate to home easier. So using that kitchen as an example, for example, a citrus squeezer instead of the old school kind where you have to have two hands and a lot of strength to get the juice out. There's a flat bottom one that allows you to sit it on the table and use the table as leverage so that you can do it with one hand. It catches all the juice and then you pour it in. Or OXO is a brand that makes a lot of very intuitive, universally designed kitchen appliances. So I'll do demos and show you how to cut a pizza with one hand if that stroke was your issue. So those are some examples of things that you can find on the Amazon store.
That's wonderful. So want to leave you with this last question, Gretchen. And again, thank you so much for your time today. I think the work you are doing is just remarkable, and I think it can help so many families, as you probably have already experienced in the past 6 years. And the key is for all resources is getting it in front of the families, because again, if they don't know it exists, they can't be blamed for not knowing what they don't know. So, we try to help share these resources here with All Home Care Matters. And, when people reach out or we reach out to people that have valuable resources and helpful resources that can make differences. And this is one of the top ones with Empowered Homes and the work that you guys are doing. How many OT Realtors are there out there?
Oh, that's a good question. I have created a group on Facebook for us, and I also have an e-course for occupational therapists so that they can learn how to get into real estate. So I will say the number has grown over the past 6 years. But I don't know. I would say I have had approximately 45 to 50 people take my course and go out and become OT Realtors in their markets. So hopefully more and more will grow and combine these two fields, but I don't have an exact number for you.
Well, is this something where I can actually envision this, where this could actually be a degree program or a supplemental minor where somebody's going to be an OT can then take courses to kind of imply both of the disciplines? I mean, I can actually see that happening.
I'll add it to my vision board for 2023.
There you go. There you go. And I got to apologize. I said one last question, but this will be the last question. Viewers and listeners that are watching this and they're thinking of their loved ones or even themselves that could really benefit from the work you're doing at Empowered Homes, what is the process for when somebody first reaches out to you? Kind of walk us through those stages.
Yeah, so when somebody reaches out via our website or just a direct email, we'll always ask what's their situation. We have a very easy peasy Google form, which is our intake process. It says, what problems are you trying to solve? How can we help you? What part of the country are you located in? So that we know it'll either be a virtual or in-person consult. And then we do a free 30-minute call. So we always like to add value for free because trust and rapport are really big for me as an occupational therapist. After that 30-minute call, if I think that I can serve you well, then I'll put a package together that will outline exactly the cost, how many hours are wrapped up into that, what you will get after the call. And if I don't think that I will be able to serve you well, then I'm always going to give you recommendations for professionals who will be able to achieve your goal. So it's just a quick Google form, free 30-minute call, and then we put together a personalized package from there.
And you can help anybody anywhere, correct? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be just in Missouri or in the St. Louis area, which is wonderful. Yeah, that's remarkable. Well, Gretchen, thank you so much for joining us today. We're looking forward to the remarkable work that you're doing with Empowered Homes, and maybe we'll talk to you again in the future.
Thanks for having me. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms or watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to say thank you to Gretchen Kingma of Empowered Homes for joining us today here. We look forward to seeing you next time at All Home Care Matters. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.